Hello, Bright. Is there any question you want to present, Bright? Hello? When our session was about to terminate, there was someone who had raised an issue, but I could not read the issue. Could you be in a position to come up again so that I can be in a position to explain to you? There was someone who had placed the chat. There was someone who had placed the chat, but I couldn't read it because our session had elapsed. Can I get your question again? Can I get your question again? Hello, can I get your question again? Okay, so if there are no questions, I can proceed. So basically, I've been saying you need to reckon the journals which are going to be involved in your cost of production. In order to come up with production, you need to recognize the journals that you are going to employ in order to record your flow of cost. So remember, the journals which you are going to employ now, they are a replica of a flow chart of the cost which we highlighted earlier on that diagram. That is the actual flow of costs which you are going to follow when you are going to utilizing the journal. When we are utilizing the journals, that is the flow of costs which you will be employing. That is the flow of costs which you're employing. So I've got a scenario here. Dinosaur Vineyard keeps track of its inventory and orders traditional inventory to have on hand when production department requests it. This inventory is not associated with any particular job, and the purchases stay in raw materials inventory until assigned to a specific job. So you can actually see that, as I highlighted earlier on, when you are purchasing material from the supplier, you are not purchasing material for the specific job, but you are purchasing material for the whole production unit, and then you place it in your warehouse. But then when a certain production unit is requesting now the materials which are stored in the warehouse, it doesn't necessarily mean that you are going to take the whole assortment from the warehouse and you are left with nothing, because you would have ordered in bulk. So we then need to reckon the actual materials that would have been requested by a certain production unit. That is the material which will then be in a position to allocate to that production unit. Same applies to labor. That is the labor which you are going to employ to that production unit. Understand? So that's what is being illustrated here by the statement that Dinosaur Vineyard keeps track of its inventory and orders additional inventory to have on hand. And when the production department requests it, this inventory is not associated with any particular job, and the purchases stay in raw materials inventory until assigned to a specific job. So you can actually see that the inventory, it will be in the warehouse until assigned to a specific job. Are we together on that aspect? That is the first move which you are going to see when you are going to do our journals. Are we on the same page on this? From the supplier, we are placing our inventory in the warehouse. Are we familiar with this move? Are we familiar with this move? Anyone who has got a question on this before we proceed? Anyone who has got a question on this before we proceed? Anyone who has got a question on this before we proceed? So perfect, you are contented. So we are saying dinosaur, Venue keeps track of its inventory and orders additional inventory to have on hand, and when production department requests it. This inventory is not associated with any particular job, and the purchases stay in raw materials inventory until assigned to a specific job. For example, Dinosaur Vinyl purchased an additional 10,000 of vinyl, 500 of black ink to complete Max Cheese billboard. If the purchase is made on account, the entry is as shown. If they purchase on account, you can actually see that Dinosaur is going to pay 10,500. Dinosaur is going to pay 10,500. The raw materials inventory is going to be 10,000. The raw materials inventory black ink 500. So you can actually see that they are requesting two materials here, which is the vinyl and the black ink. That will accumulate to 10,500. So you can actually see that these raw materials they are bringing in the warehouse. You then debit the warehouse because it is the one that is receiving. You are then being a person to credit the supplier that will be represented by the accounts payable. Because the accounts payable now, it is the one you are going to utilize to pay the supplier. So you are crediting the accounts payable by 10,500 because it is the account that is going to pump out the money to pay the supplier. Can you actually see how you can be a person to come up with the journal? The two materials, the vinyl and the black ink, they are coming into our warehouse. So our warehouse is the one that is receiving these materials. That's the reason why we are debiting these materials. And all the same, the accounts payable now, you are going to utilize this accounts to pump out money to pay the supplier. So that's the reason why the accounts payable is crediting the 10,500. So your memo now, you then need to say record the purchase of vinyl and ink inventory. You then place your vinyl and ink inventory into your storehouse, into your warehouse. You can actually see that there isn't any request of the production as of now. There isn't any request of the production as of now. You are just placing your raw materials into your warehouse. Are we together on this aspect? Are we together on this stage? How you can be the person to journalize your purchase of raw materials from the supplier? You need to debit your inventory, which is represented by a warehouse. So you need to debit each and every account that is receiving the materials. In this case, the vinyl inventory, you are debiting it by 10,000, and then the black ink, you are debiting it by 500, but obviously you are going to pay an invoice of 10,500. Are we together on this stage? Are we together on this stage? Are we together on this stage? Anyone who have got a comment or a question before we proceed to another journal stage? Anyone who have got a question before we proceed to another stage? So who can give it a try? We want to purchase materials from the supplier to bring it into our warehouse. Which accounts are going to be affected? Which accounts are going to be affected as we bring our inventory from this supplier into our warehouse. How do you journalize? Anyone who can give it a try? Anyone who can give it a try? Anyone who can give it a try? We are purchasing materials from the supplier and placing it into our warehouse. Who can give it a try? So I can give you, yes? Yes, Michael?
Okay. I think we are buying materials from our suppliers.
Yes.
So we credit we debit the supplier. Sorry, we credit the supplier, and then we debit the inventory account.
Okay. So thank you, Michael. So I'd like to give you a scenario now. We want to buy fiber optic cables from Liquid. We want to buy fiber optic cables from Liquid of two different, there are two different types, fiber optic cables from Liquid of two different types. We want to order, first one, we want to order it for 20,000. First one, we want to order it for 20,000. And the other one, we want to order the red fiber optic, we are going to buy it for 20,000. And then the black coated fiber optic, we are going to buy it at 15,000. Would you be in a position to come up with a journal how we are going to place these fiber optics in our warehouse and how we are going to credit Liquid? How we are going to treat that journal? Could you be in a position to journalize our materials? The black optic and the red optic. The red optic 20,000, the black optic 15,000. How are we going to journalize to bring them into our warehouse, and how we are going to treat the supplier? Could you come up with our journal? And then I need your responses. We are going to buy fiber optic, the black coated and the red coated. The red coated 20,000, the black coated 15,000. Could you come up with a journal? We need to place those fiber optic cables in our warehouse. Who can give me the answer? Who can give me the answer? Anyone who can give it a try? Nyasha, can you give it a try?
Okay, so I think we debit black, it's 200,000, it's 20,000.
20,000.
And then the other inventory red 15,000.
15,000.
Then we credit trade payables.
Okay, you credit the Liquid company, which is our supplier, isn't it? Thank you very much, Nyasha. So are we all in picture how we came up with our journal? Are we all in picture how we came up with our journal? Are we all in picture how we came up with our journal? So right, that's how we can be in a position to journalize. But remember, you mustn't be in a position to forget the memo, to record the requisition of, to record the pages of our fiber optic cables from liquid, to record the purchase of fiber optic cables from liquid. That will be our memo, which is our description. So we then need to proceed now. We are from the warehouse now. We then need to allocate now to a certain department now. We then need to allocate to a certain department. We then need to allocate to a certain department. So our illustration, the production process of job MA30301. The job supervisor submitted a materials requisition form for 300 in vinyl, 100 in black ink, 60 in red ink, and 60 in gold ink for the finishing process of job number MA30301. 120 in garments and 60 in finishing wood were requested. The entry to reflect these actions is, so you can actually see that all these materials now, these are the accounts that are giving these materials that have been requested by the supervisor. So you then need to credit $300, the venue that is being requested by the supervisor, because it is the account which is now giving from the warehouse to the production unit now. And then black ink, the supervisor needs up to the amount of 100, red ink to the amount of 60, gold ink to the amount of 60, garments $120, and then finishing wood to $60. So you can actually see that all these materials now, each and every account of material that is given, you then need to credit it. And then when you are placing it into the production department now, can you see what is happening now? The accumulated amount of all these materials now, it is now going to go into the work in process inventory, which is $700 that has been debited. So if you can cross-check your credits, all the accounts that have been given in line with the request of the supervisor, you can actually see that these figures will accumulate to the total to $700. $700 that the account now, which is in the production unit, pertaining to the materials that will be requested by the supervisor. Are we in line and in picture of how we can be in a position to allocate now the materials from the warehouse up to the production unit? Can you see the journal, how you can be in a position to allocate your material from the warehouse to the production unit? That's how you can come up with that journal. Remember, you should be in a position to have your memo again, to record requisition of venue and ink inventory. So you can actually see that you would have narrated what is transpired as you will be allocating these materials to the production unit. You are saying we have recorded the requisition of venue and ink inventory. You don't need to leave this memo. You don't need to leave this memo because it is an audit trail. When you are out, someone should be in a position to read between the lines what has been happening, what you had recorded, so that they won't be in a position to have some any questions when they look at your journal. So we are now in the production. We have given them the materials they require, but then it is not the only component of raw materials that is going to make up the finishing, that is going to make up this billboard. You then need to employ the labor that is going to be employed in order to come up with that billboard. So are we clear on the allocation of material to that production unit as it has been requested by the supervisor? Are we clear on this stage? Are we clear on this stage? So far, we've covered two stages. The stage of getting the materials from the supplier, you then need to debit your inventory and credit the accounts payable. And after now, you have got the materials in the warehouse. If you are presented with a requisition form now, you then need to be in a position to credit all the material accounts that are giving the material to the production plant. So when you credit the materials that are going to be utilized in the production plant, you then need to accumulate all those materials now into the work in process inventory account, which is housed in the production, because it is the account that is receiving the materials. Are we clear and are we together on this aspect? Are we together on this aspect? Are we together on this aspect? So you have seen that we have covered the stage for the materials. The material is now in the production department. We now need to allocate the labor that is going to be utilized now in the production department. The direct labor that is going to be employed in producing the billboard. So the production department employees work on the sign and send it over to the finishing assembly department when they have completed their portion of the job. So you can actually see that those employees, they are going to work on the sign only and send it over to the finishing or assembly department when they would have completed their portion of the job. So the direct cost of factory labor includes the direct wages paid to the employees and all other payroll costs associated with that labor. Typically, this includes the wages and the payroll taxes, fringe benefits directly tied to those wages. So you can actually see that, yes, you've got the net wages that are going to be paid to the workers. But remember, we've got the statutory payments we need to pay as well, which is the payroll taxes and some other fringe benefits. So basically, you need to be in a position to place them directly to that account. The labor account, you need to place them directly to that account. So the labor timesheet totaling to $30 is recorded into job MAC through this entry. So you can actually see that the total amount of the labor that is going to be employed in order to come up with that billboard, that is $30. So you can actually see that the $30, it is emanating from the effectual wages payable. That is the account that is giving the amount, the labor, which is 30, and that labor, the direct labor that is being utilized to come up with that billboard pertaining to labor job number MAC C001, you then need to debit it to the work in process inventory. Can you see what has happened here? We now have our materials. We've now transferred our labor to the work in process inventory. We are left with another component now, which is the manufacturing overhead. We now then need to see how we are going to treat the manufacturing overhead. We've taken into account our materials, we've got our labor, the direct labor, but we now need to come up with a scenario how we are going to transfer our overhead material costs in order to come up with the total cost of production. In order to come up with the total cost of production. So you can actually see that the assembly personnel in the finishing assembly department complete the job in 2 hours. The labor is recorded as shown. Still, we are crediting the wages payable and debiting the work in process inventory. So you can actually see that these workers the ones in the assembly department, the ones in the initial stage, all these people, they are direct labor because they are directly connected to the production of the billboard. Understand? So I've got the $30 and the $36. So the labor component, it will be 30 plus 36, that will be $66. That is going to be placed in the work in process inventory. Is there anyone with a question so far before we proceed? Is there anyone with a question so far before we proceed? Michael?
So, I have a question. Maybe I lost somewhere.
Yes.
Factory wages. It's factory wages payable. Okay, all right. I thought it's just factory wages account.
Okay.
Okay, I need to understand why we are debiting work in progress inventory.
Work in process.
Work in process, yes.
Yes. The reason why we are debiting the work in process, we are saying this is the account that is receiving the costs in the production unit. That's the account where we are placing our costs in the production unit. Can you see that we have taken into account the material now? We have given them to the production unit, isn't it? So that the account that is going to receive the material, it is work in process account, work in process inventory, isn't it? And then we then need to take into account the labor that is going to be utilized. We then need to put into the same account because this is the account that is going to accumulate the total costs of production. Are we on the same page? Are we on the same page, Michael? Okay, thank you, Michael. I understand. I can see your comment. Thank you. So we are done with the labor. We are done with the material. Can you see that our cost is accumulating? It is accumulating as we are progressing in the production unit. So we are done with the direct labor. We are done with the direct material. But then we need to take note now the indirect material now, how we are going to treat the indirect material, how we are going to treat the indirect material. The indirect materials also have a materials requisition form, but the costs are recorded differently. They are first transferred into the manufacturing overhead and then allocated to work in process. The entry to record the indirect materials is to debit the manufacturing overhead and credit the raw materials inventory account. So you can actually see that here there is a catch now. We need to be very, very vigilant when treating the indirect materials. The direct materials, it was straight from the warehouse to the work in process account, is the work in process account, isn't it? But when we are dealing with the indirect materials, first of all, the warehouse will then be in a position to place that the warehouse credit, and the account that is going to receive the indirect materials, it is the manufacturing overhead account. That's the first leg which you are going to employ. That's the first leg which you are going to employ. From the warehouse, if you are dealing with the indirect material, from the warehouse, you credit the material account that is giving and debiting the manufacturing overhead account. That's the first leg. On that, you need to be vigilant, very vigilant when treating, when looking at indirect materials. So when you are done with that now, the manufacturing overhead account now, it is the one that is going to be credited in order to transfer that material, the overhead material, into the appropriate job now, into the appropriate job so that it would then be in a position to be combined with the direct labor, the direct materials. It would then be in a position to go and settle into the work in process inventory account. Can you actually see now how you treat the materials, the indirect materials? They don't go straight from the warehouse to the work in process account. It first settle into the manufacturing overhead account and then be transferred now to the appropriate job, which is the materials inventory account, which is the work in process inventory account. One might ask, why is it that we are now placing the overhead, the manufacturing overhead account in between? I will then be in a position to explain the reason why we are going to, why is it that the manufacturing overhead account is now cropping up now. But initially, we have been just transferring from the warehouse up to the relevant production unit department. Understand? We need to see why is it that the manufacturing overhead account is now cropping up. We need to see why the manufacturing overhead account is cropping up. We need to see why the manufacturing overhead account is cropping up. We need to see why the manufacturing overhead account is cropping up. So you can actually say that the indirect labor records are also maintained through time tickets, although such work is not directly traceable to a specific job. The difference between direct labor and indirect labor is that the indirect labor records the debit to manufacturing overhead, while the credit is to the factory wages payable. You can actually see that this now, the indirect labor, as I highlighted earlier on, if you are into the production unit of producing stationary products, you are looking at the production of paints, you are looking at the production of active files, you are looking at the production of might markers. So you can actually see that the labor that is going to be employed into that production line, it might be 4,000. But then we are concerned only with the labor that is going to be employed in order to produce 100 might markers. So first of all, the wages payable, it is going to credit the wages payable, and it is going to debit the manufacturing overhead account, because the manufacturing overhead account, it is the one which is going to bear the cost of the whole production unit. Understand now? When this amount now is into the manufacturing overhead account, that's when we can be in a position to take our indirect labor that is appropriate to the production of 100 might markers into that pool of 4,000 indirect labor costs. You see now the rationale why we are bringing in the manufacturing overhead account into play now. The reason why we are placing the manufacturing overhead account into play now, because our pool of overheads, they have to come from the wages payable first and to the appropriate production unit, which is going to produce different stationary products. When we get the different stationary products now, we then need to take from the 4,000 indirect labor, the labor that is going to be employed to produce our might markers, our 100 might markers. So you can actually give a clear picture of what is happening now, the flow chart now, what is happening? We are having the wages payable 4,000 coming into the production unit in order to pay our whole production unit. But within that whole production unit now, we then need to take the portion of the indirect labor that is going to be employed in order to produce the 100 mite markers. Are we clear now on that scenario? Are we clear right now in that scenario? It is different to the direct labor or the direct materials, because the wages payable, it is only transferring the amount, the direct labor that has been requested by the appropriate department, which is the production of mite markers. But here, for the 4,000 now, it is first requested for the whole production unit of the production of stationary goods. The whole production of stationary goods is the one that is requesting the 4,000 indirect labor from the wages payable. When it is settled now into the manufacturing overhead account, it will then be in a position to take now the component of the labor that is going to be utilized in order to produce the 100 mite markers. Are we clear on that? And everyone is clear on that? Are we clear on that? Anyone have got a question on this? Anyone have got a question? Anyone have got a question before we proceed? Titi, are we clear? Anyone have got a question before we proceed?
Yes, we are together, say.
Thank you very much, Titi. So, in line with what I've been explaining, that's what is being illustrated by our first leg of the journal now. Our factory wages payable, it is the one that is going to be credited with 4,000 amount of direct labor, and the amount of indirect labor that is going to be paid to the whole production plant of the stationery. But that production plant now, it is the one that is going to allocate the appropriate indirect labor to the production of the mite markers, the 100 mite markers. So in order to record that, you are saying to record indirect labor for work in progress inventories. For work in progress inventories. For work in process inventories. And then the second leg now, we are now looking on that pool of 4,000 indirect labor now. We now need to take the 165 only from the manufacturing overhead, that is the labor, the indirect labor to the job of manufacturing our billboard now. So the amount of overhead applied to job number MA600. MA6001 is 165. The journal entry to record the manufacturing overhead of job number MA